Hey, Charlie Hunter, how are you doing?
Hello, Fiona Black. Good. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to my show.
Oh, it's so good to be on your show.
Backstage at CapU is what we're calling our little Facebook watch party. It's brand new for us. We've been inviting artists that have had a really nice history with us, and our series have you've played the Cap stage a couple of times. You've also played the Electric Owl, if you remember that
Sure,
venue.
yeah.
You and
Scott
Scott.
Amendola and I did. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And you last played St. James Hall, so you've been kind of all over our venues. And
Yeah, yeah.
you've
I
had
love that Capilano is a great room.
it's a
That's
beautiful room. And
always
I'm actually, I'm there, Charlie. I'm
you
sitting
were
in the
there. I
seats. I'm
see.
imagining the next time you play our stage right now, which will
I hope
happen.
so, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This
I
is
hope
just a
so.
big old pause. Thanks for joining us, and it's really great to see you. You look
Thanks
well.
for having me.
And I've been
Likewise.
super impressed by how much you've stayed in touch and how much you've embraced the new technology uh, of sharing your music online, inviting friends to play with you in remote places.
No, if silence was golden, you couldn't raise a dime. Well, because your mind is on vacation, but your mouth is working overtime.
Maybe talk about how the new technology is working for you.
Good. I mean, it's I've always been on the road, always driving and always moving around, so I never felt like I had the time to devote to learning all all this old dog learning the new tricks kind of thing. And but now that we're kind of everyone is grounded, I just wanted to reach out to people that were friends that I know or wanted to play with and just get the ball rolling somehow. But honestly, there wasn't almost no technology involved. I mean, I just had an iPhone. I recorded myself and with a click track, so the time was good and sent it off to friends and they recorded themselves on it. And of course, there were all kinds of hiccups because it's like, wait a minute, I'm recording in 60 frames per second. They're recording in 30, and then you put it on the movie to edit it, and it drifts, and you're like pulling your hair out. So, there's been every day has been some kind of learning curve, but it's been great actually, and it's been really fun because I get to kind of have these quasi creative uh, projects with friends of mine all over the globe.
I've been crying, crying. I ain't felt this way in 13 years. I've been trying, trying. Nothing can go wrong for these tears.
And it's not the same as playing with someone, and generally they're all 1 minute long, these things. But you got to put something out there, keep busy, and so it's been cool learning all this stuff. And now I have this Patreon page that I'm trying to do, kind of make content. I hate to use that term,
So what's
but
a Patreon
posting
page?
like
What is that?
it's a really cool thing. It's like a little one-stop shop for your kind of fans if they want to become. It's like they go in and it's like a monthly charge. It's like a subscription service. So that most people pay like $5, and then I just put a bunch of lessons up. I put just a bunch of me playing up. I'll put a bunch of resources on there for them to check out with the lesson. It's kind of a cool community. It's a lot like that Instagram thing, but far fewer people that are much more specifically connected to what the artist is doing.
You find it really difficult to keep up on all the new platforms that are arising. You
I
know,
mean, when I Yeah, when I was on the road, it certainly was difficult because I was just like, don't have time for that, don't have time for that. Like Fiona's calling, I need to get to the gig, or I got an email from so on and I need to promote the gig in Portland or wherever it is. So, and in addition to me being essentially the driver, and if I'm not driving, in Europe, I'm on planes and trains, and there's just not really any time to learn any new skills. So in a lot of ways, it's great. I'm kind of really excited about it actually, and where I live now in Greensboro, thankfully in North Carolina is about a third the cost of where I was in New York. So I'm hoping I can keep myself in rice and beans for the next year or two, or as long as this lasts.
Well, I've always appreciated your positivity. You're pretty
Thanks.
unflappable. The last time
No, I'm flappable. You
you're
just haven't seen it.
flappable, the
I
last
just took
time,
pity on you.
yeah, the last time you played for us at St. James, I remember getting either a text or a phone call from you, and you were at the border, and it was just this colossal lineup. And I'm looking at the time, and I'm like, how on earth are they going to get from there to St. James and sound check and start at 8 o'clock? So it was all kind of like fraught. But you were just, every time you called, or it was all very calm, like, yeah, we'll get there. It's
There's
just
nothing
like,
you
but
can do,
after, as you said, you've been on the road for 30 years.
Yeah.
What do you miss about the road, and what do you not miss about the road?
Honestly, when you're on it, doing it as long as I've been doing it for, at this point, I just miss the playing the gigs.
I've been coming over hills and mountains. I'm gonna drink from that crystal fountain. All of God's sons and daughters that morning will drink that old healing water. And we're gonna live on forever. Gonna live on forever.
The rest of it is, I may be getting a little old to be driving 60,000 miles a year at this point.
Wow. You don't
But
fly. Do you not fly?
I mean, if you can avoid flying, it's better because flying to me is worse than driving, just in terms of stress. And I mean, the airline industry, when it's working great, is not great. You know what I mean? And it's really problematic. And I'd like to have my destiny in my own hands, especially now with GPS and how great and interactive it is. You can pretty much get to where you need to go on time.
There's so much time traveling, and and the pleasure is to get to the gig and be able to play for those few hours, but then you're back in travel mode. So that must be, a nice little silver lining to have, like you said, to have time and to have some time at home with
Yeah,
your family.
it is nice to be home for a while, and this is probably the longest I have been home in 30 years. I'm looking at going on 3 months here. I was in Italy in March, right when it happened, and,
Oh,
and our tour there ended in Italy. We had our last two gigs canceled because of the virus, and I almost got stuck in Italy.
geez. So it was
I
hard
know.
to get a flight home, I'm sure.
Yeah, thankfully I did. It was kind of I had to be super vigilant and get to the airport 5 hours early, and you know, and the flight kept changing, and luckily I was there, and I ended up getting a flight home. But yeah, so it's been almost 3 months for me at this point. You know, um, crazy, crazy, man.
So the East Coast and the West Coast, there's always been a little bit of a rivalry, and you've spent big chunks of time in both places. Especially in the early years of jazz, in the golden years of jazz, there was like the West Coast sound, the cool sound, and the East Coast, of course, was blowing up with all the big stars, the Coltrane and Miles Davis. Do you still find that there's a real difference between the music scene on the West Coast and the East Coast?
I mean, I imagine, but I think at this point you just have megalopolises that are incredibly um, expensive and very difficult for musicians to live in. They are all because of interconnectivity. I think things are becoming much, especially in the really big cities, I think things are becoming very, there's a real sameness to everything actually now. I mean, if you're talking about the in the 1950s, well, obviously these regional things were enormous differences. You know, the accents were an enormous difference. Everything was enormously different. But now it's all. I mean, you travel to all these big cities, and you're like, which city am I in? They're all the same corporate outlets that are here. It's all the same automobiles. It's all the same products everywhere, and it's all the same incredibly um, high rents and really difficult for an artist to live. You know, so I think they probably have more in common than not. You know.
Well, you've made a decision to move to North Carolina recently, so that's a bit off the beaten track.
I'm like about an hour outside of Raleigh, Durham. Um, I mean, yeah, it's cool. There's people here playing music, and when I got here, I partnered up with someone, and we kind of set up a bit of a venue where we had, you know, we would do clinics during the day, and we'd have little performances. We probably did like 7 or 8 performances a month of, you know, people like my friends, and then a lot of the time we gave a night to the college kids to come and do their thing. And you know, it's just there's a lot of potential here, you know. And I felt good to be able to help some of the younger musicians out, whereas if I was in New Jersey or New York, where I wouldn't have time to do anything because I was just always running up the down escalator trying to not, you know, lose the house or whatever it is, because the, you know, the living expenses are just so high there, you know.
Going back in our history together, the first time we had you, I remember hearing your music and I thought, I bet that would be fun at the Electric Owl. Like you like to play kind of loose and free, and it had a wonderful. Your music is hard to pigeonhole, but I think we did maybe 2 or 3 shows together at the Electric Owl. I remember you and Scott Amendola on drums, and because of the nature of your miraculous guitar with either 7 or 8 strings, you're like your own rhythm section, Charlie. So you and drums is like a complete band. It's great. You guys were hungry after the gig and nothing was open nearby. So we drove up Main Street and there was a place that I was looking for that was called Habit, and it had closed down. And in its place was Charlie's Little Italian. So I remember having to have a photo shoot with you and Scott outside with the sign.
Oh, because he was my little Italian?
Exactly.
Amendola? He's not that little. He's pretty medium.
Lots of fun memories, Charlie. You've been such a consistently awesome guest in our series, and you change it up all the time. You know, I really enjoyed you and Scott. You know, you guys are like brothers, and you musical brothers. So you're telepathic with your communication, and you're fun on stage. But then you brought that great trio with Bobby Previtt, Curtis Fowkes.
Like Curtis Fowkes, yeah.
That was super good.
That was really fun. I didn't get to tour that much with that group, so it was kind of a ball to do it.
I do remember we had another photo shoot. I don't know why we like to do our photo shoots after the gig with you all. And Bobby had on that cute little beret, and we were teasing him so much because you thought he looked exactly like Jacques Cousteau.
That's what he says. He says he looks like Jacques Cousteau. I said he looks like Quagmire from Family Guy.
Quagmire. Oh. The last
Darn
time you
straight,
played
man.
for us, and you did make it to the gig, and it all started on time miraculously. You guys made a really good time once you got across the border.
Yeah.
But you had a singer, Lucy Woodward. What a find!
Well, I want somebody to tell me, answer if you can. I want somebody to tell me what is the soul of a man.
I had never imagined you playing with a vocalist because it's always been instrumental.
You know, I did a record with a young woman from Mexico, Carter McLean, and I did. And Carter, we came to Capilano with Carter too, I think. But
Carter and a saxophonist,
Rob,
and I'm
I think
forgetting
Rob
his name.
Dixon. Rob
Yes.
Dixon.
Yep. Yep.
And so I was in Mexico, and we recorded this record. This young woman, Silvana Estrada. She came over, and we recorded another record with she and Carter and I, and we had plans to have her come and do a tour. And this was just at the start of Trump. And when he was just I mean, it continues the ridiculousness, but then it was all about stopping anyone from coming into the country. And we had a tour booked with her, like a good 20 dates. And we paid for the visa. We went through all the proper channels, and she was denied. Coming into the States, she was denied. And yeah, and it was really heartbreaking for her. She's young. She's like 19, 20 years old, and she was really looking forward to it. And then she got denied a second time. The next one was even a bigger tour, and we ended up trying to get her a different kind of visa. They waited for the day before to tell us that her visa was canceled or not approved. And I think that's kind of became kind of a common thing.
So unfair.
Yeah, they were very unprofessional.
They know you've spent all the money, you've bought all the flights.
And I had to scramble to get someone. And it turned out that Lucy, we had a lot of mutual friends from that group Snarky Puppy. And I think a guy who was kind of working with them at the time, Andy Hurwitz, he said, well, why don't you ask Lucy? I think she had something fall through. So I just said, hey, you want to go do some road work, and I have this thing? And she's cool. I can do it. So it ended up being great, and we kind of hit it off. And she's a great singer and a real hard worker and a road dog as well. So yeah, and we've just been doing it ever since. And we made a record not long after that gig you saw us at. We made a record with that group down here in Greensboro, and who knows when it will come out now, but there's one in the can.
Well, really fond memories. That was December of this past year.
Yeah.
Before we'd even heard of COVID, and it was a really great gig. It was really well received, and yeah, Lucy was a really welcome addition. She's powerhouse.
Oh yeah. She don't play.
And lots of fun, just like you all are.
Yeah, she's good. She's a good kid.
Yeah.